Hello and welcome to Royale Without Cheese, our bi-weekly podcast in which we discuss both the classic and the unknown of art and popular cinema from the then and now. We are your hosts, me, Tomás Ferreira, and Leonardo Miranda.
Hello.
Hey. Unfortunately, Mike couldn't join us today. But this is our talk show segment where we welcome grand indie filmmakers to our wonderful couch and discuss their work. Malin Ingrid Johansson is a Swedish film writer-director. Having started out as a stills photographer, her directing work has evolved into music videos, art films, commercials, and short films. On the latter field, one of her first shorts, Brynjar, was shot on Iceland with a handheld 16mm camera and a documentary approach. Then her follow-up short, Maiden, had its international premiere at the Berlinale 2023, was nominated for Best Short Film at the Swedish Academy Awards, and won Best Short Film at Gothenburg International Film Festival, the largest film event in Scandinavia. Today, we discuss her most recent short film, TIFF 5B, which recently won the Shortcut Award for Best International Short Film at this year's Toronto International Film Festival. So, Malin, how are we feeling today?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be with you guys and to be in conversations with them.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for coming. First of all, we need to say congratulations on receiving such an honor at TIFF with your film. And for the listeners at home hearing this, Malin's short TIFF 5B really centers around a woman struggling between being a caring mother for her son, but also her own desires for self-fulfillment and independence, as we find our protagonist, Mia, kind of seemingly leaving her previous marriage and meeting up with her newfound love on a ferry boat with her unwilling child along for the ride. Now, having seen your short, I was really captivated by how you frame the mother's emotional journey. I think the lack of specific details about how this woman's previous married life ends or is ending, and what the son knows or doesn't know about her newfound love really heightens the sense of ambiguity and the dramatic tension in her battle between the responsibilities as a mother, but also fighting to be an individual with her own desires. But as a filmmaker who is really attracted by those themes myself, it's really interesting to see your eye for this dichotomy between self-sacrifice and personal desire and the guilt that comes with it in a family setting. That's a place that I often find myself going to as well. So the first question is really, how did the idea come to you, in writing this film, and what was really the writing process like in fine-tuning the emotional struggle of your protagonist?
Yeah, thank you for those words. I'm very happy that you see the ambivalence in it. I think as a filmmaker, that's the most also important thing to me, to never say to the viewer like this is how it is, but to leave it as open as life often are. But this story actually came to me through my own car window. I saw this woman myself on the parking deck, framed by my own window. A summer a few years ago, I was on my way to an island in Sweden where actually the director Ingmar Bergman also happened to live in the past. And it was summer, full of, packed car. Everyone was going to vacation. And I saw this woman driving up on the ferry with like blushing cheek, the biggest smile over her face. And she just jumped out of the car and kissed a man on the deck very passionately. And was kids everywhere in her backseat, in his backseat of his car. But then, you cannot stay on parking deck when you are crossing the sea. So when we were back to drive off, it was like everything had changed. Like she didn't show this to the kids in her backseat, but I saw it because I was on the other side, and she just looked in front of her as if all her dreams left her, with these silent tears like running down her face. And I asked myself, like, what happened? Like during those like few hours we crossed the sea, everything seemed to have changed for her, and it made me very curious. It also made me curious on myself, like why did this image stay with me? Probably I've been both in the front, in the driver's seat, and in the back seat of her car. So that's what started it.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you say that, because I also feel like when finding ideas, normally, it's very much about, not that it's always like this, but the source often comes from reality, stumbling into images of reality people on their day to day. More often than not, the interaction happens from behind glass. For example, one of my short films was just seeing an elderly lady walking down the street in her crutches, summer as well, and the reaction was like, what is she doing? Where does she come from? Where is she going? Why is she there alone with her two crutches in the middle of the road? Is she gonna fall? So those questions really start out, interesting stories. And in that particular one, for example, because of this theme of self-sacrifice and personal desire, it really became the story of a grandmother who, in the situation of having her grandson, a toddler, starving, she had to kind of recur to her crutches upstairs. But because of her pride, she doesn't know if she should do it or not. And she has to go out and fetch food. The pride of actually, leaving, being impaired and not being able. So do I take the crutches or not? So that was kind of the situation, the mythical figure of the grandmother ceasing to be so benevolent. But anyway, this interesting kind of this sharing of ideas and how you thought about it, and how these stories that are seemingly out of our experience suddenly touch us, and it makes us ask questions about, why did I connect with this? It's a reality so different from mine. But yeah, that's very interesting. My follow-up question would be, your leading actress, Alma Poisty, she really delivers a multi-layered performance in terms of the range of emotions that she delivers in this film of just 15 minutes. She goes from these tenderly excited looks of, longing for a loved one, but then fear and guilt for abandoning her child, and lastly, silent anguish. And there's a very particular moment in your film that I found very interesting, has a pattern that repeats, which is in the son and mother relationship, where the son frequently touches his mother's ear. And that's like a secret way of communicating. And at first, in the opening of the movie, it's to provoke, but by the end, it's to look for comfort in the mother. It's that feeling of, oh, I did wrong, I want to win you back. So I really want to ask, what was the collaborative relationship that you had with Alma in creating the character, both past and future, but also these suggestions that really intrigue us, these acting choices, for example, suggesting the idea for the touch of the ear. Was it you? Was it Alma who had this idea?
No, Alma was my dream actress from this film. Of course, she was Golden Globe nominated for her part in Fallen Leaves just recently, like a film, and she also made a beautiful portrait about the Finnish author Tove Jansson a few years ago. And I just wanted to work with someone full of life, which I think Alma is, and that also has this unpredictable layer to her that and I think she embodies Mia so beautifully. The ear thing came from me, but Alma and Enar, who is playing the boy, also, had this beautiful connection. I like they invented so many ways of connecting, and really to like finding the way that, okay, this is how we communicate. A lot of things happened by just us trying out situations, like also on set, like and in rehearsal also, like, having them playing different games. Just the one, I don't know if you do that in Portugal, but in Sweden we have these games of you touch someone's back and you count how many fingers you feel, for example. Like we had them already like playing with each other and really carving out their special way of communicating.
But is it? I'm not intrigued about that last point, because is it theater games in the acting set, or games that you would have like between mother and son, or child's play, more that you're talking? Which one of the models, so to speak?
Yeah, in rehearsal we both had them like play together, paint together, do different exercise where they should like guess what the other person is thinking, and just really a way to get them closer, and also maybe ways where they spoke without using the words, which I think
Yeah.
in
That's very
families
interesting.
you sometimes do. But then on set it was very much because I wanted everything fresh, also in camera, especially working with kids. So it was very much setting up a situation and then see what this character does. Like, how does
Right.
Mia and Edwin like react on this? let's see what happens.
Yeah, so there was no fear from veering off from the script, so to speak. Almost like we are elaborating on this on top of the script situation.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
how I try to work as much as possible. Of course, it's hard when you are a director and screenwriter and sometimes control freak. You know, it feels safe to you have your images in your head, but I
yeah,
really challenge myself and try to let those go also to have an open mind, an open eye when shooting.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And to put this in concrete terms, because it will be very interesting to share this with the viewers or listeners. Can you think of a scene on the day that you were shooting, and how was it on the script, and how perhaps it completely changed
Mm.
from the reality of the script? Do you remember anything?
Yeah, actually, the opening scene, we did a lot of. In the end, we did a lot of improvisation there, like just in terms of like getting life into it and also finding out, you know, the way these two were actually talking to the others. The way that I wrote it didn't feel like, you know, just the lines of it didn't feel 100% alive and natural to me. So then we tried much more improvised setup, and then they like started to develop their own way of talking. Like they are saying like, but when is soon, and they are like saying soon, soon, soon. They have this way of and now you're only getting fragments of it, but repeating things a lot of times, and you feel like, oh, they have been talking like this.
One other element that contributed to the dramatic tension in your film is, of course, as we were talking about, the ferry boat. A lot of the narrative power comes from that aesthetic choice of having this unstable physical location, which serves as the allegory for the family drama, a very literal bridge to a new stage in the life of the characters. And so from what you've said, even right now, I imagine that these ferry boat trips are a bit more common for your life in Scandinavia. I imagine that there's more daily trips between Denmark, Sweden, and Germany, so it's more familiar to you. I guess to me, it was a bit more like a unique thing to see. And some moments that pop into mind are obviously the incredible high-angle shots in the opening. This huge door, I love the look of it, the fog, the sea surrounding it. And of course, there's also that moment when she loses her son and the car deck. The cars are it's like a labyrinth of cars, of these very modern looking cars. And so, given this incredible location, we wanted to ask you how you managed the shoot, like logistically. And did you rehearse a lot beforehand with the actors? Did you discover the place as it went along? And like, how did you accomplish, for example, those initial images?
Very good question, and from also as you hear me laughing because it's of course as fellow filmmakers also that these things can be tricky, but we had like yeah, of course, planning a shoot and then having the timetable of a boat to adjust to as well, and you know other passengers. We wanted we planned the shoot like this, that we did half of it with the real other passenger reality just as it was, which meant we had the boats times to adjust to. We couldn't like forget the team member on the boat, of course. We needed to leave the ship in time. We also shot this in November, which means in Sweden we have like 6 hours daylight or something. It's very narrow, the window. So that was a challenge, but I'm also very glad that we did that, because then we got like all the real cars, we got the real motions. You know, it would have been hard to fake that. It's such a big location, such a massive like scenery to put up. Also the staff working on the ferry, and they were really helpful. So we were also very lucky with that. But then we planned the second half of the shoot with a boat that was standing in the harbor, like without passengers, which was more so. Yeah.
And how did you accomplish that high angle shot, for example, in the opening?
That's so. Oh, that was also actually. It was luck that it was that light and foggy that early morning. But managed to climb up to the one of the entries where the car are supposed to drive
All right.
at the right moment. So that was
Yeah.
partly
Was
luck.
was it a shot that you, for example, in the script or before, that you already had in mind, or was it something that, right?
No, I had it in mind actually. I wanted the ferry to open up as this curtain on a theater, you know, and also for the ferry really to be a creature of its own. So it feels like, okay, I'm opening up and this is my metallic stomach where you know you're now gonna enter, like almost like a creature in an old ancient Greek story or you know whatever. And I wanted also the boat to have a sound that were echoing her feelings in a way. So my composer Håkan, he called me one day and he was like, "Oh, you know, I think we have to make the ferry sound like, you know, an animal full of desire, like calling for
Yeah.
a partner." So
I do
that's
feel that.
what we did. Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah. And on another note, more visually speaking, well, still visually speaking, personally, I think your film is somewhat evocative of Dogma 95 films in the sense that you have this raw but sensitive choice in having the handheld point of view camera together with your DP Stellan Runge. So really want to ask what was behind that visual choice for you and what inspirations, whether in film or other art forms, were behind your short film.
Yeah, thank you. No, Stellan is such a master also on working handheld, and we did it also together in our last short, Madden. And we found that way of work, that method to be very alive and to give us a lot of that we can be very close to the character, we can be with their emotions, with their inner life, because this film is, as you also said, so much about the protagonist's inner journey and all her tension, like the duty versus the desire and how to be a human, you know, all the price we pay for our freedom. So the choice, yes, was very much to be able to catch all the life in it, but and to give it a nerve, but also, yeah, so many. There are a lot of references, of course. Like, but for me, I often look for references, like both in literature. I had so much actually for this film, a lot of Annie, I don't know how you pronounce that, the perfect in French, but her book The Passion was a big one. There's also a Swedish author called Ia Genberg who has written a book called The Details that was very inspiring. But coming to cinematic references, I mean, I'm a big fan of Lucerisia Martel and also Claire Denis. Andrea Arnold was, as younger, I looked a lot at her stuff.
It's interesting how literature sometimes falls into our inspirations, even in film. And I think they have an influence in our writing as well. And it's like, say, sometimes you are reading a book and a great artist like Picasso says, steals, or even Michael Caine has said. And a bad artist just copies. So it's stealing in a way that is, it integrates, it imbues your writing in a kind of way. I don't know if you agree with that, but normally something that, it's the same as saying influence. But I think, in literature, oftentimes when reading a book, you think, this could be interesting somehow, or another version of this conversation.
Okay. No, but really, and I think it makes totally sense also because I am at least trying all the time to understand how it is to be a human. There are so many experiences also from this theme of that we are exploring in this film, someone that has a big passion like coming to her and where it's almost not a choice, you just have to throw yourself in there and you with all that comes with it, the dirty, the ugly, and the beauty.
Yeah, to continue, you already talked a little bit about the music, and we wanted to expand more on that because it is very intriguing. There's like in the composition, there's like this sort of ticking clock pacing the rhythm in the blend of what feels like the boat's horn, as you were mentioning, which then functions as this call for love. It's initially it's very bassy, and then as they start kissing it, you understand that it's not just the ferry's boat horn, it's also like a melodic thing, and becomes the song, becomes the music, specifically when we see Mia alone with her lover. And so could you expand more on the process of working with your composer Hakan Eriksson, and how you came up with this piece, and also other inspirations? I don't know if there was specific scores, specific music that you used and thought about when composing?
No, thank you. Yeah, Håkan is the most talented composer. I'm very glad to be collaborating with him both on this film and on the previous one. Actually, when we've been working together, it's been very much text translated into music directly, like very few references actually sound-wise. On the previous film Madden, that is more about high-heeled shoes in cow dung, like how to break free when you grow up on a farm as a young girl. But there we found Håkan found a cello who sounded like a cow, or that he made sound like a cow. And I think the same process here, like we talked so much about the theme and the desire and the passion, and started actually out in what sounds does a ferry boat make? Like originally, we wanted the score to be like for the viewer, like, is this music or is it sound design? Like, I don't know, you just want to feel it more than hear it. So it was a process really to find that balance of when it was like sounded too much like music and when it sounded too raw. But actually the ferry boat in itself also has amazing rhythms, like all the motors, all the pumping, all the horns, and then Håkan like took sounds from real boats and just composed from them.
On the topic of Madden, we also know you are developing your first feature based on that film, I think. And so can you tease anything about that project, if you can, like the aspirations you have for it, and when you hope to get it released, or even to start further developments like the shoots, post-production, all that?
Exactly. That film is a film to everyone who ever tried to ride a skateboard on a gravel road, I would say. That it's about being a 19-year-old growing up on the countryside, finding out who you are, who you want to become as a grown-up, but also how it is to be a boy with a large sensibility, living in a very practical environment. And I wonder if maybe there's nowhere where you can be as free as where it is a long distance, to the next large city. Like in a way, like we it's been so much urban dreams for a long time, but I've started to question, like, maybe that's where you actually can be the most creative and the most free in a way. So full of exploration. But yeah, I'm writing it at the moment, and it's right now it's two brothers and a young woman involved. It's also very much about the distance between those we dream about being and those who we actually are.
Had you written a feature before, or is
No,
this
it's the
first time working?
Mhm.
Okay. How is that? Are you finding like it's much different writing a short versus writing a feature?
Yeah, for me it's different muscles, and it's also dealing with the concept of doing something for the first time. And I really right now I have a dogma for myself, which is between 10 and 1 every day I'm writing, and then I'm not allowed to do anything else. And that's, I've noticed after 1 o'clock the critical thinking starts to kick in, and then it's better to get some inspiration to feel fill up with ideas that see other
Yeah.
feel or read and or think or talk. But that actually this it feels like a very good system at the moment. So I hope it will stay that way.
You don't get tempted after one to go back and write?
Sometimes I do, and then I'm allowed to, if that feeling is there,
Okay.
okay, to break the
Yeah,
rule.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to borrow that because I'm writing my future myself and I'm having all those questions with routine and such. And it's difficult first because it's totally different from writing a short. And how do you battle, like, first off, the self-critical thing, even if you have the 10 to 1, I guess it's always there somehow, writing a scene and I think, is this enough? Am I there still? That voice. After one, where do you look for inspiration?
Mm,
Walks,
good question.
films.
Yeah,
That's always how do we renew that wheel?
exactly. Always nature or very often, but I often walk in the morning before I start to
That's
write.
Bergman. Bergman used to do that too.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes, true. Then Bergman saw a film at 3 in his private cinema. I know.
yeah. All right.
No, but I also for me it's very much in music. Listen to music. It's very much in watching films. Right now, I'm just trying to see all the Lucia Martel's films and also just the most recent like festivals films at the moment actually. But or now I'm actually lying because this weekend I since I also like to talk a lot about what I'm writing, I got 2 DVDs with a film called HUD. That's an American film from I don't know the 60s maybe, and another one called 5 Easy Pieces.
All right.
The technicals on that on a DVD player that I saw this weekend. That was also very inspiring in different ways. So yeah, it can be so much, so many places, but often in dialogue also, very often in books, in text.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things. It's dialogue, and I think that if in the past, for me personally, for example, I don't know how you feel about it, but just as a theme of conversation, if dialogue, I've always searched to do more visual instead of dialogue. And still, I do search. If I do have a way of telling the story without words, go for it. But I no longer feel like, for example, dialogue is something to be scared off away. Like, if you have the opportunity to have dialogue, let it be as mysterious and suggestive as the images. Because then it will behave almost like when you're not saying anything. I love dialogue where it seems like the characters are not talking about anything particular, but they are saying everything about their inner world. That's the dialogue that you're like, mysterious. What is this? What are they? You want to know. You want to know more. And that's particularly difficult to conjure, Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
What from what I see, maybe it's us in Sweden who are just very good at awkward silences and saying, not speaking out loud what we mean, but in my surrounding, that's very often how it is. Also, you talk about something, but you're also talking about something else.
Right.
I can also say that I love when you're not using that much dialogue, like every word gets so strong, like when you use it. So it's also very efficient to hold back and show a lot, but then some words can really, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a real big advocate for that. For like the less you say, the more impactful is when you say something. Also, and I think also the dialogue itself gets so elevated in a film visually if the camera is stick to a position and just traveling between characters. It depends on really the tone of the scene, of course. But I was been writing this recent scene on my script, and the only thing I've been thinking about it is, even as a director of the piece, to not manipulate the audience with too many cuts, with short, reverse, short, or back and forth. Just allow, because it's about the character understanding something very wrong about the other person that he's talking to. He comes at the start of the scene very open to character, very excited to see the person again, and then suddenly becomes, this is not the person I once thought he was. So I thought that visually, sometimes the visual enters in the scene even if you are a writer director very, very early on. And I think it's like Agnes Varda says, writing for cinema is not just the script, it really continues on as you think about the visuals. And it's interesting how that elevates the dialogue itself, for the camera to prolong itself on a scene. Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Actually, before the final question, because you mentioned Bergman a couple of times now, and I was thinking, because here in Portugal, like the very celebrated Portuguese filmmakers, they're not particularly well known or particularly even liked. Like there's lots of stereotypes and prejudice against Portuguese filmmakers. I was wondering if that happens in Sweden as well, especially like with Bergman.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
His reputation is not all.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
it's
wow.
universal.
That's very interesting.
I think
That's
it
very
is.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're celebrated always in other
Definitely.
places, not in their places
mean,
where they're from.
No, exactly. But also, I don't know, being a male director in that time when he was alive with all that power, also, I think, of course, affected some behaviors. And,
Yeah.
Of course,
it's not black and white, as we said. It's ambivalent.
Definitely. Yeah, personally, Bergman the artist, I really love his films, and I think I have watched plenty of them. And one of my dreams is to go to his island one day. So fingers crossed. Let's see.
There is also you can go there, right? They have this artist residence that you can apply for and live
amazing.
in his house and write by his desk. It's beautiful. I can really recommend that.
Oh, amazing. By the way, I think it would be a wonderful last note to also talk about what was your experience in visiting Bergman Island. How was it organized? What did you see first?
I think that place is very magical, actually, and I think the atmosphere there it's like this Swedish desert it's so unique, and I think it was that way for Bergman lived there as well. I went to the beach, like close to his house, full of rocks, with a few friends from Mexico, actually, that was visiting, and we just like stayed there, and it was a beautiful moment because the atmosphere, I don't know, I cannot really describe it. It's just so silent, but the nature is like, it's so present. It's not like the nature is so pretty. It's very, in a way, raw, but the colors, the smells, the scents from all the pine trees, the ocean, the light is incredible because there's no soil or brown, ground. It's calc, so it reflects the lights everywhere. So it's like very few people, a lot of animals and trees and very special.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like you're describing one of his settings in his films. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
The questions we finally go to, like, are you planning on distributing Deck 5B via streaming at some point? It's more of where are you planning to take this film, and is it continuing on festival run? Is it going somewhere else to stream? All that.
Exactly. No, we are also Oscar or Academy qualified with that one. So we are. I hope, fingers crossed, we can get on the short list. Yes, that would be. But I'm knocking on wood as I'm saying it. But yeah, the premiere was in Toronto, so the festival run just started. So I really hope we can reach as many people as possible. Next one, I'm going to Zagreb Film Festival, which I'm very happy about and looking forward to. But I hope it will be around for a year of festival, and then, of course, on a streaming platform. There are conversations going on right now through our distributor, which is still secret, but I hope it will be there.
And that was the latest from Malin Ingrid Johansson, folks. We would like to thank her presence here today. She is truly an excellent filmmaker, and remember to check out Deck 5B once out on streaming platforms. If you're a filmmaker running the festival marathon, feel free to send us a message for an interview as well. We would love to promote your work. Don't forget to subscribe, share this interview, or simply give us a like. That's how our podcast can grow ever more groovy. And if you're on YouTube and want to see more interviews like this, check out this next video right here. Thank you for listening and see you next time.